Greetings to all, friends. So, bugs, matrices. In fact, if you actually observe the space more closely, if you pay more attention to your surroundings and environment in which we live, distantly, impartially, without ideas of good or bad, and so on, there are always certain specific things that clearly reveal the fact that we are, indeed, after all, robots, that we are. In fact, after all, computers living in a simulated information environment, in some kind of simulation, essentially. First of all, we can see that when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes and the first thing you perceive is a kind of ripple loading into the space. That is, it is very similar to how the upload occurs, as if the systems are actually being loaded. Also, all the possible special effects that we have from how people, drink or do something else, meaning this disrupts the established informational connections. These communication disruptions lead to changes in perception between sunrise and sunset. In the early morning and late evening, there are always these subtle moments. The cracks between worlds that Don Juan spoke of. Yes, those magical moments when the sun is setting but hasn't set yet, or when it is rising but hasn't risen yet. Yes, that's indeed the very middle part. It's quite rapidly quick, actually. In reality, just a few seconds. A moment where one can manage to become aware of oneself, in essence, of the movement of celestial bodies. In general, if we are talking about people, yes, and discussing the aspect that there are certain duplicates, well, it's like a person from the past. They are completely different individuals, but in some way, their common framework is similar, right? In some aspects, they're shared. Ego, their common face, eyes, hair, the same presentation, something else, it's as if they are duplicates. They might be a little taller or a bit larger, but basically, it's clear that people were made according to one template, right? They are not brothers or anything, just similar people. And surely in your life, there have been times when you are moving somewhere and see someone who was exactly like a person you previously knew by another name. Then you might encounter another similar person. In other words, it's essentially as if you are surrounding yourself again with those informational imprints that existed before. Yes, there are certain, let's say, systemic characters, meaning. There are many different interesting things that can be noticed by the naked eye, such as patterns, shapes, and colors. To say that, yes, indeed, everything looks very similar, or you might see it with a tired gaze, as if your eyes are weary from looking too long. Again, some white spots may appear or something else, meaning the brain doesn't have time to recognize certain information and simply doesn't render the plots, the details that are present. This happens because the brain is overwhelmed and cannot process all the visual data quickly enough, leading to a lack of recognition and rendering of the finer details. These are all very similar moments to computers and computer games in the way these aspects can also be expressed there in numerous different ways. If we talk about perception, then let's say you have the ability to energetically discern the flow coming from your fingers, or some kind of aura around your hand, or something else, then reality is completely transformed. That is, if you can see at least 2 to 3 layers with your eyes. Then you can appreciate how wonderfully our reality is structured. It becomes even more interesting when you start to see 6 or more edges. Where more interesting, indeed massive energy information interactions take place. You start to see what energetic channels are. You begin to understand how people interact with egregorial systems. You start to see how people interact with each other, where communication occurs, through which chakras, what is happening with the field, and so on, and so forth, etc. In other words, it turns out that our reality is essentially woven from an informational reality. From that reality, which is quite carefully and subtly hidden in a way, like a veil or blanket, we truly see an incredibly vast number of very important, interesting things that cannot be overlooked. These things provide us with the opportunity for an ever-deepening understanding of both who you are and what exists around you. Therefore, I have repeatedly said that it indeed makes sense to meditate with us. It makes sense to engage in our practices and techniques in order to at least open up an initial vision, to at least somehow open up the perception of that subtle world that exists around us. And based on this, commence removing negative energy and assisting your relatives and loved ones, sanitizing your space, your vehicles, any objects you interact with, because your interaction with an informational object of a negative spectrum will inevitably introduce that negative spectrum into your field structure. In other words, almost everything needs to be gradually changed, slowly elevated to a more interesting level, to a more engaging stage for oneself, and continue to improve in this particular field, to continue to experiment appropriately and effectively, to change, to carefully observe what changes, to meticulously track how changes occur, and to understand that the aura is indeed the informational imprint of a person. If you truly and deeply make changes within yourself, that change will inevitably and naturally occur in the environment around you, because what is inscribed within you is what you interact with and who you are as a person. If you are really changing this, if you are making some chakras larger, if you are filling them with energy potential, if you are cleansing the meridians, all of this should be reflected in your life. If you are making real changes, they must happen for real. There is also a very real similarity in what we are in this information environment. Well, of course, friends, having certain cheat codes at hand and having the right opportunities and strengths, we definitely, absolutely, definitely need to use them. Of course, we definitely need to press all possible mechanisms in order to be more effective in this world, in this one big game titled survival. In fact, our cells continue to seek options, and thus continue to look for ways, in order to keep transmitting the information array that they carry within themselves, which is essential for their function, plus what a person accumulates throughout the entire life that they live, and continue to adapt to new challenges. If we consider the transmission through ancestral processes, be energetic, one could say karma, one could say good karma. That is, each lineage carries within it a certain informational imprint, and we can rewind back to the first people through this informational imprint. And here lies the amazing thing. Who exactly were these incredible first people? What was it all precisely like? And ultimately, who initiated and activated and launched these programs? And how does it all work? Because one thing is indeed a living cell and, as such, life on planet Earth. And another thing is undoubtedly a human being. If you look a little closer, it feels like a person is made from a slightly different set of building blocks than everything else that exists on Earth. That is, animals and the plant kingdom somehow coexist harmoniously with each other. And it is clear that they were produced by the same programmers, but written by different people. You know, I don't think it all just happened by chance, on its own. I believe that a person is very complex. The system is a very complex mechanism, and perhaps the words in the image and likeness have some meaning, because indeed, cells are not arranged haphazardly, but come together to form a certain image, specifically the image of a person. In my time, I saw certain spheres. These spheres are like bubbles strung on threads, and this bubble is like a certain imprint, a matrix. And so, when we talk about people who are roughly similar, they are printed from this matrix. In other words, each of us has some kind of matrix that prints out people like us, roughly speaking. And they don't necessarily have to be relatives, nor does it have to be anything else. It's just a common imprint taken from this branch, from this sphere. These are amazing things, friends, amazing things. When you start to delve deeper and further into these endless fractals, endless sequences of different colors and patterns, they change. And at some point, you understand something. It's truly astonishing. And I strongly believe that the Matrix's unique ability to reveal its intricate inner part, its hidden underbelly, is precisely what clearly indicates that you are indeed on the right path, that the vast universe trusts you with its deepest secrets. If you didn't understand something, if you are somehow confused within yourself, you simply won't see any of this, you won't understand any of it. Therefore, I believe that a truly valuable and correct moment is the genuine work on oneself. True self-work is what can authentically produce tangible results, truly allowing you to fully immerse yourself in the world of energy information interactions, in the world of life as it truly is, at its subtle foundational layers. Why exactly is this so? Why does joy come? Why does anger frequently come? Why does envy occasionally come? Why does goodness and friendliness, kindness come? Why do we want to give more? What is resentment? What is self-flagellation? What is self-pity? All of this is evident. These are all internal systems, the inner essence of a person, to one degree or another, in various potentials, within certain frameworks, like buttons pressed inside a person. You can squeeze them out, and you will become more yourself in the present. If you can't squeeze them out, they will continue to gain potential. Every passing similar energy will stick to them, and they will become more substantial and resonate more strongly. I think there is only one option, friends. It is true inner work, diving into these patterns, mechanisms, and at the very least, healing oneself. Well, maybe there really is no meaning in all of this. We just need to live. You just need to live simply and trust in the space around you. Go with the flow of life itself. Think about nothing at all. Be fully present in each moment, and not overthink and analyze everything too much. I believe that this approach is also a valid way forward, but this particular path isn't right for me. I choose careful and conscious analysis, and deliberate and conscious movement within my own structures. Debriefing, cleansing oneself, and bringing oneself to the true self. To truly become the best version of myself that I am indeed meant to be. These buttons without the superficial garbage, emotional garbage, and blockages that people often carry with them throughout their lives. Get rid of these difficulties, friends. Grow and develop. Meditate with us. Come to the retreats. Everyone is waiting for you. Light and love.